Welcome to the second tier. I'm Justin Peach and I'm joined by a familiar face in Benjamin Bloom from the Benjamin Bloom Football Channel. And we have some breaking news. Grant McCann has parted ways with Hull City. News that may come as a surprise to some, but not to others. Ben, what is your reaction to the news?
Well, I mean, you've nailed it there. Not a surprise, is it? We were sort of talking about this before the takeover occurred. And really, that's the only factor in this, isn't it? This doesn't feel like a decision, based around anything other than new owners coming in and wanting their guy. I think the statement says literally the same as I've just put it. And we heard whispers from a sort of Turkish journalist, didn't we, a couple of nights ago, and it went quiet for 24 hours. Then it's kind of been quite leaky today, and the announcement has just come. So not surprised. I suspect we'll get lots of reaction and lots of comments saying it's unfair, life's unfair, it's ruthless. But the analogy I always use, Justin, is if I buy your house off you, you can have the best wallpaper in the world, but I can put my rubbish wallpaper up over the top of it.
I'll tell you what, that's a really good way of putting it, actually. And it is quite interesting because if you take this season in isolation, Grant McCann's done a very good job. I know he's been heavily criticised because of his championship record in the past, but I think, especially since November, he's probably done enough to at least justify having the job until the end of the season. But as you say, new owner coming in, they want their own people in charge, and that's certainly something that's got to be respected. And I think Akon Ilakai's statement was very transparent, something that Hull City fans haven't had for... Yeah, exactly. Something that Hull City fans haven't had for a long time, which I think is also a massive benefit in this. It's some way of finding a positive out of a manager being sacked. But where does it leave Hull City? Obviously, the squad still needs strengthening. There's not as long left in it until the end of the window. Could this unsettle the squad potentially?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, they're almost in a position of strength, though, Justin, aren't they? So they're 10 points off the relegation zone in a season with two teams having points deductions. Barnsley, unfortunately, could break some records for a really bad points total, and Peterborough could break some records for a really bad away record. So when you factor in all of those issues, the risk of new owners firing a manager and then their team getting relegated is, I think, lower. Obviously, there's what have Hull got? 19 games to go, 29 points. Justin probably need 13 points or something, don't they? When we look at this season's totals, what we're expecting them to be. So that's a good thing, I guess. And when you mention the championship record, we always have to add that massive caveat of Jared Bowen and Kamil Krasicki, parachute money running out. I know he knew what he was getting into, but he really had his legs chopped out, didn't he? And then, after all that, high tide at the end of the season, and Charlton went down with 48 points, didn't they? So, yes, his championship record is not good in respect of that, but lots of mitigating factors. And then, is it then equalled out by a League One promotion? And look, you can see my Ipswich scarf up there. If you're not competent in League One, it's not any given that a club of Hull's size is just going to go out and win the division, which they did. But no, to specifically answer your question, Justin, I don't think they're in that much danger as things stand. Obviously, we have seen teams and clubs do this and make the wrong hire and lose 8 out of the first 10 games, and then I'll be saying something very different.
Yeah, I think that's the thing about the Championship. It's not inconceivable to think that Hull City could be dragged into the bottom 3. You've got to consider when Birmingham City's new ownership took over, obviously sacked Gary Rowett. They're on the cusp of the playoffs, and then they ended up finishing only a handful of points above the bottom 3. So it's probably, in that sense, it is a bit of a risk. But at the same time, like the owner said, there's no point hanging around and waiting for a defeat to sack Grant McCann. Make the decision now and put your man in place. And with regards to that man, Shota Ovaladze is the man tipped to replace McCann. Has a fairly good record in Turkey and Uzbekistan. And if anyone isn't aware of Ovaladze playing the early Champ Manager games and Football Manager games
Glasgow Rangers, yeah.
Yeah, you'll realise how good a player he was and how good a goal scorer he was. So there's pedigree there as a player. But again, is that a risk bringing someone in from overseas, or is that just not a stigma with Championship sides, but you know what I mean? It can be a bit of a stereotype. Bring in a Mick McCarthy, Neil Warnock type to see you out till the end of the season, sort of thing.
Yeah, safe pair of hands. Yeah, I think it's less of a stigma than it was, isn't it? With people like Valerian Ismail, Carlos Corberon, even a Daniel Farker. People have come in and they've been unknown and done really well, frankly, haven't they? In terms of Shota Arveladze, you may as well tear his CV up and put it in the bin. He's their guy. That's the deal, isn't it? So he's known to the owners, and he's the guy that they wanted to bring in. Your point is a perfectly fair one, though. The Championship it's not a normal flat race. It's the Grand National, isn't it? And if you don't know where the big fence is coming and having to turn the corner or whatever, it's eaten up and chewed up and spat out probably better managers than Shota Arveladze. And you know what the Championship's like, Justin? It's almost like once you're slightly in over your head, it can, you're done, aren't you, sometimes? So, good luck to him. Of course, good luck to any manager who comes in. And I suppose the next thing we'll find out is what's the finance, what's the ambition, can they do it without any FFP ramifications? It then becomes that conversation if they are ambitious or meddling owners. We will find out, and I'm not suggesting either. I don't know, you don't know, and we're all going to find out.
Yeah, it's a very good point to make as well. I think because there's so little time left of the transfer window, are they going to be able to add? Are they going to be able to, or are they going to keep the same squad for Arveladze? And I think the reassuring thing about Arveladze, if he do make that appointment, is his calibre and experience of playing and managing in big leagues. I think if you bring in a complete unknown who hasn't got that experience, it's certainly a lot harder for them. But I guess his pedigree as a player and as a manager does help. But let's end on Grant McCann. As I've said, his Championship record has been criticised in the past, but I think this season he's done a lot to justify arguably working with a poorer squad on balance than what he went down with a couple of seasons ago. What's next for him? Do you think he could get a Championship job? Would that be on the card somewhere, or a top-end League One?
I've almost got him typecast as top-end League One, and I don't know whether that's unfair, me saying that, because I'm sure he would argue, if Reading came up, or Birmingham happened to come up, or Bristol City, or any of those sort of clubs that are currently in the Millwall. Do you know what I mean? Any of those clubs where sometimes the fans get a little bit impatient with the managers there, or in a couple of cases, sometimes the managers get a little impatient with the owners at those specific clubs. I've almost got it more likely that, I don't know, Sunderland, if they lost 6 games or something in a row or something like that. And again, that may be unfair, but I just think people are going to be far more into that promotion out of League One, and the good job he did at Doncaster beforehand. Look where Doncaster are now. So, it's not always that simple, is it? But yeah, I don't know what your thoughts on that. I've got him typecast as a top 6 League One rather than the bottom 12 Championship.
I think that's where you typically put him, but I think for me, especially over the last couple of months, I think he's done enough to prove himself as a manager who could go into say Preston, for example, if they were in the market for a manager. Obviously, I know they just appointed Ryan Lowe, but a team that is starting to build something from the ground up rather than going into a project where he's got to fight fires like he did at Hull. So I think this spell at Hull has put him in a different category as he was 2 years ago, or even that 8-0 defeat to Wigan, for example. If he'd have been sat there, I think he'd have found it very difficult to get a job. But as you say, that League One promotion and what he's worked with this season, low resources, a lot of injuries, change of formation. I think he's learned a lot about himself as a manager probably in this last sort of 6 months than he did in the previous 18 months. So yeah, I think I'd put him in that
it's almost like you've given the glass half full, I've given the glass half empty, and the glass half empty isn't that bad. You'll get a good League One job. So yeah, that's probably the range in which we're looking, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that wraps things up for us. Grant McCann leaving Hull City, and we'll keep you up to date on matters at the Tigers. And make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you again soon.